In the 5-month period of the finalization and the money being flowed to the foundation, both of the gentlemen named as donors had direct access to meet with the Prime Minister as well as the Prime Minister's brother and senior people at the foundation. Do you understand why that set of circumstances is concerning for Canadians when these individuals have been identified in public reporting based on CSIS documents as cutouts acting on behalf of the communist dictatorship in Beijing? How many times, I just need you to confirm, did Mr. Alexandre Trudeau sign for donations on behalf of the foundation?
Mr. Rosenberg, there's one of two things that are possible. Either you are completely incompetent or you were willfully blind. There is nothing in your record to indicate that you were incompetent. The only conclusion that I can draw is that you were willfully blind.
Mr. Green?
Did you enact any type of investigation after that?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
I think you also appreciate, sir, that there has been a number of articles, a number of interviews that have been given by a number of entities that have severely questioned your integrity and your character with respect to your handling of this particular donation, and you being instrumental in preparing the report sent to the Prime Minister. Media is asking questions, questioning your integrity and ethics. Canadian politicians are asking the very same question. Canadians are asking that question. Particularly Chinese Canadians are asking that question. And now we find out your former colleagues at the foundation are asking that question. Now, according to you, from all the evidence that I've heard...
Which former colleagues?
I'm not going to specify that.
This is your wake-up call.
This guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
How often did Mr. Trudeau sign donation agreements?
Not often at all, as far as I recall. Frankly, a lot of the donations didn't require donation agreements. This was a ceremony that took place at the University of Montreal. You had a document that was signed by officials of the University of Montreal and by Mr. Trudeau. It was quite a formal affair rather than what we would normally do with donations, where we'd receive a donation and send back a receipt.
Did the donors request that A. Trudeau or Mr. Alexandre Trudeau be involved in the ceremony?
I don't recall. I know he's appearing here tomorrow. It's a question you might well put to him. I don't recall whether they requested it or whether he thought that it was a good initiative on his part. And as I said, given the circumstances and the nature of the gift and the spirit in which it was given and his father's involvement in opening up diplomatic relations with China, it was felt that it was appropriate that he would be there.
Right, and while it may have been considered appropriate, it also could be problematic, not based on who his father was, but based on who his brother is, and based on the circumstances surrounding the donors. And I'd like to ask you a question about that. You said that it wasn't unusual to have staff from the company that these individuals claimed they were representing to provide a mailing address. What country was the mailing address that it was sent to?
It was China. This is all kind of in these documents. My understanding is that Mr. Zhang, and there's no secret about...
Isn't that unusual, sir? Though for it to be... Do you receive donations from many Canadian companies who ask you to send the paperwork back to China?
No, I don't.
Is this the only time that's happened?
As far as I know it is, but if I can explain. Mr. Zhang, if you look up Mr. Zhang online, you'll find that he wears a number of hats, including chair of Millennium Eagle Corporation, including being the president of the China Cultural Industry Association. And in fact, the address to which the donation was sent in China, you will see when you see the materials, is the address of Mr. Zhang as a director of Millennium Golden Eagle Canada Inc. that is noted in the corporate records kept by the corporation's branch in Ottawa.
And you'll table that you're undertaking to table the documents that you're
Absolutely.
referencing? Okay. And are you able to do that today? You have them in hand?
Well,
or?
I have them in hand, but I was told that the rules of the committee don't permit me to table paper.
Okay, just if you could.
Point of order, quickly.
Yeah. Up your time, Mr. All right. Go ahead, Mr. Green, with your point of order.
Mr. Chair, is there an ability for us to waive the rules and allow those documents to be tabled in paper, as well as a follow-up, perhaps electronically, if they're made available?
Yeah, my understanding is we may need a motion to do that, but I will clarify that with the clerk. Or once a motion is proposed, we can seek unanimous consent.
Is there? I'll move a unanimous consent motion.
Just let me check with the clerk for a second.
Hey, Larry.
I could clarify a bit further if you'd like. No?
No, we'll just wait till he starts
Sorry,
my
okay.
starts my right back up there.
So thank you for allowing me the time to clarify. You can't do that on a point of order. You have to do that when you have the floor. But you can also propose, Mr. Green, that notwithstanding the usual practice of the committee, that you could ask for these documents to be submitted, and I would hope that we would have unanimous consent for that. So we'll have
Chair,
to
I'll
wait.
acknowledge that Mr. Barrett has the floor and has the prerogative to do that at this time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Barrett, you can continue.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, if that's okay. Which documents are we specifically referring to?
Well, Mr. Rosenberg has referred to 160 pages of document. What was that?
I don't have the whole 160 pages here. I have, this is a corporate search on Millennium Golden Eagle International.
Okay, so
respectfully then, Mr. Chair.
The motion hasn't been moved, so there's actually no debate that's going on right now. I thought you were just seeking a point of clarification, which I accepted. Mr. Barrett, if you want to continue, you have 3 minutes to continue. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thanks, Chair. So are you able to say at what point that the Prime Minister or his brother were raised in the negotiations that occurred over the 2-year period between the donors and the foundation?
I think very early on, not the Prime Minister, but Mr. Alexander Trudeau would have been involved. I started my job at the foundation in September of 2014. I know that Mr. Trudeau was having some discussions with Mr. Lefebvre from the University of Montreal before that, and you'd have to ask him when those began. I believe they began quite early in 2014.
When did you first learn about the donation?
Which one? The donation to the University of Montreal?
The donation destined for the Trudeau Foundation.
September of 2015.
And how did you learn about that?
You'll have to understand that we're talking about something that happened 8 years ago. So my memory of this was poor, but there is documentation here that I will provide to the committee in this 160 pages that suggests that there was no intent on the part of the donor to donate to the Trudeau Foundation initially. And
so who asked them for the money?
The University of Montreal.
The University of Montreal asked them to give $200,000 to the Trudeau Foundation?
No, I didn't say that.
So who asked for the donation to go to the Trudeau Foundation?
This came out of discussions that my staff had with the University of Montreal and with the donor over the course of several months that were the result of the meeting that I mentioned on September 24th, 2014. There was a committee set up, and as a result of that, by September of 2015, the donors had agreed that some of the money should go to the foundation.
30 seconds. Okay, so I've got very limited time left. It took 2 years, based on public reporting, to negotiate this donation, but within the 5-month period of the finalization and the money being flowed to the foundation, both of the gentlemen named as donors had direct access to meet with the Prime Minister as well as the Prime Minister's brother and senior people at the foundation. Do you understand why that set of circumstances is concerning for Canadians when these individuals have been identified in public reporting based on CSIS documents as cutouts acting on behalf of the communist dictatorship in Beijing?
All I can say on that is...
Do you understand why that's concerning for Canadians?
I read the newspapers, and I can understand why people would draw inferences from that. But I will say that the negotiations that took place that culminated in this agreement ended before the election in 2015. And in fact, these documents will point out that somewhere around the 11th of September 2015, there were plans to actually have the announcement ceremony in Montreal because the donors were in Montreal.
And you're talking about the donation to the foundation or to the university?
At September...
Sorry, I'm gonna have to end it there. You're gonna have to pick it up later. Had Mr. Barrett for 5 minutes.
Did you follow the CCIA instructions on where to send the donation?
I believe that my staff did. I wasn't aware at the time, I don't believe, of these interactions, and I don't believe I'm copied on any of this material.
So the receipt was sent to Hong Kong and then to Beijing, is that correct?
I believe so. I should just say that the 160 pages of access...
You signed the receipt, though?
Yeah, I signed the receipt.
But you don't know where it was sent?
You're asking me to remember 8 years later where the receipt was sent. I don't.
With all due respect, you said that this was an unusual circumstance, unusual in that Mr. Trudeau signed this donation agreement in an unusual ceremony with an unusually large donation from a foreign country, which is quite unusual for the Trudeau Foundation. Is that fair? That this is not a usual set of circumstances that we're talking about here? I highlight that it's so unusual because that's what we're seeing in public reporting. We're seeing that a donation was made by individuals who are effectively cutouts for a soft power operation operating on behalf of a communist dictatorship looking to wield influence in Canada. And you were the DM Foreign Affairs. Is that correct?
I was.
In your time in the public service. You would have been briefed and aware of foreign influence tactics as a part of that job. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you not find it odd that this donation from Beijing, from cutouts acting directly on behalf of the communist dictatorship in Beijing, were suddenly looking to target a donation to a foundation that bared the name of one of the candidates for prime minister in the election? You said that it was, a couple weeks before ETHI in 2015, and they want to get the money out the door quickly. Does that not strike you as concerning, but based on your training?
Well, I guess, if you want, as I said in my opening remarks, you have to look at this from the context of 2016. In context of 2016, just about every university in Canada, many corporations, government of Canada, including the Harper government, had changed their attitude towards China.
With all due respect, sir, this is as you said, this is very unusual. How many times, I just need you to confirm, did Mr. Alexandre Trudeau sign for donations on behalf of the foundation?
I know of this one, and I can't confirm. I don't know of any others. I'm not sure there weren't ever any others.
Did you have any conversations with Mr. Alexandre Trudeau about this donation?
I probably did, but I don't recall them.
Did he ever raise donors or donations from China with you?
You mean other than this?
Yeah.
No.
I want to go back to, you did a lookup, an Industry Canada lookup, and to Mr. Green's question with respect to the China Cultural Industry Association. It's problematic, this link, because of its direct connections to the CCP. The address that this donation was sent to is incredibly important. You said you're not sure about where it went. Are you able to verify that by searching your records, or would an email search confirm that?
I don't have access to the Foundation's records. All I have access to right now is the 160 pages that were provided under access to information. I know that representatives of the Foundation are coming, and they have access to all of those records, and you perhaps would be better to ask them. I can't get those records myself.
I think that in 2016 we were aware of attempts by foreign governments to try and influence our democracy. I want to ask one last question with my remaining time. You saw the reporting after the donation was received. In 2022 and 2023, you would have been aware, with the benefit of hindsight, of what appears, to be a very problematic donation at best, but an obvious influence attempt by the Chinese dictatorship at worst. Do you think it was appropriate for you to accept a role to investigate foreign influence in our elections when this had occurred at the Trudeau Foundation, which is, as has been reported, what seems quite clearly to be an influence operation to target the Prime Minister?
I need a very quick response, Mr. Rosenberg.
Yeah,
very quick.
Yeah, I didn't see a connection. As I've cited Professor Wark, he just didn't see how this was an influence operation at all, and either did I, frankly. And when I took the job, by the way, back in June or July, I was offered by the Privy Council office to examine one. I wasn't giving the whole, view on whether there'd been election interference. I was examining the operation of this one piece, the protocol, and whether it was adequate. And I said, well, it worked as it was intended to work, but there are some really big problems with it.
Okay.
Now, I know nobody wants to talk to me about my report, but there's a lot of stuff in that report that is critical of the government. There are 16 recommendations on things that they need to fix.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg.
And I will make adjustments at the end, depending on the time that we have left.
Okay, so, Monsieur Berthold, vous avez 5 minutes.
Monsieur Berthold, you have 5 minutes, please. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Rosenberg, you were Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs, correct? For how long? Between 2010 and 2013. So you're well aware of any networks of influence and what could happen internationally, especially now we're more aware of it. Did you not find it strange that the Trudeau Foundation received a donation, such a significant donation before an election? No. And I can say it again, times were different. It was after 2 of the largest universities received sums. And when you received an indication that people making the donations were not the people that you were sending a receipt to, did you not find that strange? No. We receive donations from people who have companies and who use the companies. And you think that's fine? That 2 individuals made a donation while hiding where the company was located? Our intention was not to hide anything. Earlier you stated that the receipt was issued to an address in Hong Kong, but when I look at the documents from the foundation, the receipt has the foundation's address. I don't have that document. It's a document that I have here. Official receipt, Millennium Golden Eagle International Canada 804, Hong Kong, China. So that's the receipt that was emitted. It's not only the address for a Canadian donation. You didn't find that strange? Not at the time, because it is your name on the receipt. So you signed a receipt to a company incorporated to Canada but sent to Hong Kong, and that didn't seem strange after working as a Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs to ring any alarm bells? No, because we were asked to send the receipt. I thought it was Mr. Jiang, but now I'm not sure. But the receipt, Mr. Rosenberg, the receipt is not saying what you're saying. You talked about an address to send the receipt, and I can see that the receipt was issued to an address in China. Inaudible. It doesn't matter who's using it. It should have rang alarm bells that the donation was coming from somewhere else than what was told to you. Did it happen frequently that you sent other receipts abroad? I don't remember. Did Alexandre Trudeau participate in other donations to the foundation? I'm not aware. So it would be the only time where Alexandre Trudeau was a part of a donation during your time there. You should probably ask him that tomorrow. But to your knowledge, to my knowledge, no. But as I said, it's been 8 years. And I don't have a great memory of what happened. Mr. Rosenberg, given all of the information that was at your disposal, and because you have experience as a Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs, we were surprised by your naivete with the information that you had at the time and the circumstances that were raised in what we've heard. Unfortunately, in 2021, there was the foreign interference, and were you showing the same naivete? I don't think I was naive. And I stated, and the situation changed a lot over the years. And there are a lot of testimonies from our security agencies stating that there is a problem with China and other countries. Unfortunately, you were a privileged witness of how Chinese interference was happening with the Trudeau government. Mr. Berthold, your turn is over.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg. Mr. Rosenberg, you claim that the source of the donation was the Millennium Golden Eagle International Canada, Inc., yet on July 14, 2016, when you sent international bank transfer instructions, nowhere mentioned in that letter is Millennium Golden Eagle International Canada, Inc. The only names on that letter were Bin and New. Why?
I don't have the document, and I can't answer the question because I don't recall right now.
Highly suspicious. You signed it, highly suspicious that on a document sent to transfer the money, that nowhere is that entity mentioned, just the names of those donors. You claim that the receipt was sent to the registered office of this company, but yet in the September 26, 2016 correspondence with the Trudeau Foundation, the address that the receipt was requested to be sent is the same address as the China Cultural Industry Association. Can you explain that?
Well, I'll say two things. First of all, I know that Mr. Zhang was the president of Millennium International and director of Millennium Canada. I'm not sure what other positions were. Also the president of the China...
Yeah. And you know what the China Cultural Industry Association is? It's a company that is associated with the United Front Work Department. And Mr. Rosenberg, you said with a straight face that you saw no evidence of a foreign interference network with respect to this donation. What does Millennium Golden Eagle International do, by the way? What do they do?
As far as I know, they're a media company.
Did you ever bother to do any due diligence? Did you bother to even go to their website? Because maybe if you did, Mr. Rosenberg...
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
This better be on a procedural basis.
I'm just wondering if there is any procedure to ensure that witnesses that come before this committee are treated with respect.
I'm not seeing any evidence of disrespect. I'm seeing a hard line of questioning from Mr. Cooper. If it does cross that line, I'll deal with it. And I do want to remind members of the committee that points of order are on procedural basis, not because you don't like what you're hearing, okay? Go ahead, Mr. Cooper. I stopped your time. You have 3 minutes and 35 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did you bother to even go on to the website of this company?
So, as I've explained, the way receipting was dealt with...
Yes, the answer to that is no, because if you had bothered, it's a yes-no question.
Mr. Cooper, you do have to give him a chance to answer, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry. Receipting was done by staff in the foundation in conjunction with our accountant. And when I got a receipt to sign, I assumed that it was fine.
Hopefully they knew how to use Google, because had they bothered to do so, had you bothered to do your due diligence, you would have known that the website of the Millennium Golden Eagle International states that as part of her mandate is to take governmental guidance from Beijing. If you had bothered to do your due diligence, you would have known that Zhang Bin was a political advisor to the Beijing regime. You came before this committee with a straight face as the former Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, and you said, there's nothing to see here in the face of that. Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious, and I'll answer your question. First of all, Zhang Bin was introduced to Mr. Lefebvre at the University of Montreal by our ambassador in China, Mr. Guy Saint-Jacques, who I actually spoke to yesterday. Mr. Saint-Jacques was very well aware of the associations that Mr. Zhang had, and I think it was felt that almost everybody in China who was anybody had some connection with the government. The question was, what were they trying to influence?
And this agreement began to crystallize with this individual associated with the United Front Work Department, with this shell company, with that had an address that was a house in Dorval, that whereby it was insisted upon that as a condition the Prime Minister's brother be involved, that all of this was happening 1 month before a federal election campaign.
Well,
and you didn't see anything to be concerned about, nothing at all to be, nothing, no red flag for you that would have said, maybe we should look into this, maybe we should do our due diligence, maybe there's something here. Nothing at all.
First of all, these discussions started well in 2014, and before I arrived at the foundation, long before the federal election in 2015. Mr. Lefebvre, who was negotiating this principally, was advised by our ambassador in China that Mr. Zhang was a good person to talk to. And you know, at that time, there were lots of Canadian organizations that were dealing with
Mr. Rosenberg, there's one of two things that are possible. Either you are completely incompetent, or you were willfully blind. There is nothing in your record to indicate that you were incompetent. The only conclusion that I can draw is that you were willfully blind.
Hey, Mr. Cooper, thank you for your time. Let's have some decorum here, please.
Thank you, Mr. Villemur.
Mr. Green, you have 6 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Rosenberg, I can imagine that, being before this committee, considering some of the allegations, insinuations, and outright attacks on your character and reputation are probably not easy for you to sit through. You've stated that you thought that a public inquiry might have helped. Do you agree that perhaps this could have been avoided if the relationship between the former Governor General, Mr. David Johnson, the foundation, and quite frankly, the investigation into this, could that have helped your position as the former president and CEO of the organization?
So I think there are a whole lot of balls up in the air on this.
There sure is.
I said at the end of my remarks, with respect to all this stuff about the Trudeau Foundation and the 2016 donation, that there should be an independent investigation. I think that's different than the broader issue of an investigation into the issue of election interference.
Mr. David Johnson was a member of the Trudeau Foundation, correct?
He was A member of the Trudeau Foundation, yes.
And would you not, take a political risk analysis as a former DM to say that this also complicates the relationship with the...
Yeah, well, I was nonpartisan as a deputy, and I don't think I'm going to wade into whether... I have enormous respect for Mr. Johnson.
Well, let me just put this to you in a very direct way. Given that the insinuations have been put here, and quite frankly, I am unconvinced at this moment that this is, it's simply a matter of governance. Like it's very difficult for me to unpack, what's been presented by your testimony and Ms. Fournier. And so could you not contemplate, sir, that this particular situation wouldn't also be included in an investigation in foreign interference, given the allegations?
I guess somebody would have to look at what the appropriate mandate for that is. I will tell you, whatever happens, whether it's a public inquiry or parliamentary committee or NSI COP or whatever, we'll have to have a focused mandate on this. Otherwise, it's just not going to be worth anything. And the other thing I would say, I really hope that the focus on what happened in the 2021 and 2019 election doesn't take away from people thinking about what's happening right now as we go forward.
I'm going to intervene. Mr. Zhang, he's a Chinese citizen, correct?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. As far as you know. So in the process
I believe he's a Chinese citizen,
right.
Yes.
So you are somebody who's prided yourself in your testimony as being someone who provides the government with advice on protocols. And yet the testimony of Ms. Fournier painted a very different picture of the governance of the Trudeau Foundation. One of the things that I've had trouble reconciling, given my experience with a local foundation and the high level of diligence that was presented by a community foundation, is the lack of due diligence, quite frankly, at the Trudeau Foundation. So you have all of these subject matter experts around the table at the board. Nobody's raising issues. Nobody in her testimony is recusing themselves from the perception of conflict of interest. Can you just state for the record, in your own ability to kind of perhaps respond to some of those allegations, what was the state of the governance of the Trudeau Foundation under your leadership?
I think the state of the governance was pretty good under my leadership.
Did you have, in retrospect, the appropriate protocols in place to deal with the political sensitivity of running a foundation on the former Prime Minister's name while his son is the current Prime Minister and his brother is on the board?
Well, so first of all, the first thing that was done, and it was done, I think, he stopped being active before I came on the scene.
But his name didn't.
His name with an asterisk.
Do you think that Mr. Zhang Bing would have provided a $1 million donation after the 2016 Pay for Access Liberal fundraiser dinner? Do you think he would have done that if the foundation's last name was Smith?
First of all, they provided us with $200,000, not $1 million. And I just want to say one other thing about what was provided and the whole issue of influence. Back then, and Mr. Lefebvre actually talked about this in an article that he wrote, it's not that we were naive that we were dealing with people that were linked to the Chinese government, because just about everybody was. What we were naive about is that we actually believed by dealing with them that we would have soft power influence on them and change. I'm telling you.
It's the mistake of every Western country who thinks they're going to have soft power over China,
That's
sir.
where we were.
You are the former DM to Foreign Affairs. And respectfully, I've been pretty neutral until that comment, because that has a level of hubris that I think is the challenge that this foundation is facing, quite frankly, that has gotten us into this mess. So I want to dial in on the $200,000 donation. I thought a subsequent larger offer was presented and then rejected, but I may have recollected incorrectly. So in her testimony to this committee, Ms. Fournier stated that you had not asked to receive the remaining $60,000 of the donation, which was due on July 1st, 2018. Why did you not take the rest of the money?
I don't recall. I was just about out the door on July 1st.
You don't recall why you... So just so that we're clear, your records indicate that in subsequent years, your average donation, a total donation was like $25,000. This was an outlier donation. You are an endowment that is not dependent on donations. You took $200,000 and then didn't take the last payment. You would have been the one to make the decision not to take the last payment. Why?
I don't recall at the moment why. I would say this. given all the publicity around the donation in the Globe and Mail, we had to kind of put off the conferences that we were going to have.
Last question: with that scrutiny,
Mr. Green,
did you enact any type of investigation after that?
No, we didn't.
Okay. That's the first round of questioning. We're next going to go to a 5-minute round, second round, and we are going to begin with Mr. Brock. Go ahead, Mr. Brock. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Rosenberg, just want to confirm, we've heard a number of issues. I just want to confirm one point with respect to Alexander Trudeau. Your evidence is, to the best of your recollection, without referring to any of the documentation you had before you, that Alexander Trudeau was only instrumental in negotiating one contract for the Trudeau Foundation, yes or no?
To the best of my recollection, yes.
Thank you. Following up on Mr. Green's last question to you, I'm not satisfied with your response that it was close to my departure. That payment was due July the 1st, correct? Pursuant to the contract?
I'd have to look at the contract, but I'm assuming it was.
First payment 2016, second payment 2017, third payment?
I'd have to look at the contract.
Right.
To see.
Okay. Now, you also interviewed with Vashi Kapelis on CTV Question Period some time ago, and you were quoted as saying that if the situation existed today, in hindsight, looking at it from a 2023 perspective, not a 2016 perspective, you would not have accepted donation. I think there would have been a different decision made for sure. Do you stand by that statement?
Yeah, as I said.
Thank you. You'd agree with me, being a DM of Foreign Affairs, the very issue of foreign election interference was very much on the radar map in 2016, as it certainly is in 2023.
I would say only after the U.S. election.
I think you also appreciate, sir, that there has been a number of articles, a number of interviews that have been given by a number of entities that have severely questioned your integrity and your character with respect to your handling of this particular donation, and you being instrumental in preparing the report sent to the Prime Minister. Media is asking questions, questioning your integrity and ethics. Canadian politicians are asking the very same question. Canadians are asking that question. Particularly Chinese Canadians are asking that question. And now we find out your former colleagues at the foundation are asking that question. Now, according to you, from all the evidence that I've heard...
Which former colleagues?
I'm not going to specify that. What I've heard so far from you today is, notwithstanding everything that is going around this situation, you saw no red flags whatsoever with respect to this donation. Correct?
At the time, that is correct. We actually thought there was no pressure put on us, that the money actually came with no strings attached, and that the issue, the idea of putting on conferences to do with China was actually very attractive.
Thank you, sir. No strings attached and no direct efforts to influence Justin Trudeau, the new Prime Minister of this country. You didn't see any red flags whatsoever.
I did not.
Right?
That's correct.
In fact, you told Vashi you had no reason to think there was anything untoward about the donation. Donations were putting on conferences. Correct?
Correct.
Notwithstanding that at the time, you also knew that there was a report from the Globe and Mail regarding a leaked CSIS source.
At the time, no.
And the CSIS source intercepted a 2014 conversation between Mr. Zhang and an unnamed commercial attaché at one of China's consulates in Canada. They discussed the federal election that was expected to take place in 2015 and the possibility that the Liberals would defeat Stephen Harper's Conservatives and form the next government. The diplomat told Mr. Zhang that Beijing would reimburse him for the entire amount of the donation to the Trudeau Foundation, according to the source. I am gobsmacked beyond belief to listen to you in the role as President and CEO and a former Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs to suggest you knew nothing about CSIS intercepting a very important call. You know CSIS reports to the government on any political interference whatsoever. You know that.
Would you like me to answer?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, the first I ever heard of that was in an article that was published in the Globe and Mail on February 28th of 2023.
No one believes you. Canadians don't believe you, sir.
How?
Mr. Chair.
Just,
sorry.
Again, on a point of order, we're like 3 seconds left here, Mr. Fergus.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Rosenberg, you've now undergone almost 2 hours of what feels like cross-examination. I want to give you the benefit here. There's been allegations made. There's been some direct comments on your character in terms of whether you're believable or not. There was testimony of Madame Fournier, who raised some significant issues. To the benefit of your reputation and your standing, I want to provide you the opportunity to say anything in response to any outstanding issues that you would like to have on the record.
Well, the one I want to go back to is CSIS uncovering a Chinese plan to donate to the Trudeau Foundation. This appeared in the Globe on February 28th of this year. It was based on an anonymous source, apparently not based on a document. This is intelligence. Intelligence is different than evidence, and I'm going to tell you something that some of you may have heard from David Morrison when he appeared at the other committee, the House committee. He said, intelligence rarely paints a full or concrete or actionable picture. It's not truth. It's often inaccurate or partial or incomplete. And in fact, we don't know what happened to that intelligence. We don't know where it went. We don't know who was briefed on it. We don't know if anybody was briefed on it. We don't know if it was taken seriously or not. I wasn't briefed on it. There is a question as to, and it's a policy question, as to how far CSIS should go outside the government when they become aware of something that might affect another non-government Canadian organization. And I understand there are limits on them with respect to revealing sources or methods, but maybe they need to be a bit more proactive in speaking and letting people know, and this is not just CSIS, but the whole security community, what is the public interaction of the transparency of the Canadian security community. I didn't know about this. I don't think anybody knew about this until February 28th, and to say that nobody believes me, frankly, I'm insulted by that.
I appreciate that, and with my remaining 15 seconds, I would say, to give you one more opportunity, would you not agree that an independent public inquiry into the matter might help clear the air?
I think an independent public inquiry is a reasonable option. There are other reasonable options as well. And I would hope if there is an independent public inquiry that it actually finds a way of making sure that not everything is happening in secret, because there's an awful lot of security information that will never get into the public. So the public part of the inquiry might be very much in question.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. Barrett, you have 2.5 minutes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, someone calls you a liar.
Sir, you said that intelligence is different than evidence. Of course it is. Did you meet with PRC diplomats to arrange this donation?
No.
Okay, we have an ATIP, an Access to Information record, that says that in Montreal on the 24th of September 2014, you attended a meeting with the a consular official from the PRC. Does that jog your memory?
Yeah, so that, yes.
Okay.
Just going to look at that. Sorry about that.
At the end of that same document that I'm referencing, that you've acknowledged now, it says, once the proposal is ready, the foundation will involve Alexandre Trudeau. So we talk about evidence. So we have evidence that the president of the foundation met with consular officials from a foreign government to arrange a donation where they have the brother of, you're shaking your head, sir, but I'm reading to you from the document which you first said you didn't meet with them, but now you acknowledge that you did because I brought receipts. So we've got the receipts, and you said it was extraordinary and you can't recall another time that Alexandre Trudeau would sign a donation agreement. So he did it in this case. So the foundation met with a foreign government, arranged this donation, ensured, and it's minuted that it was a requirement to have Mr. Trudeau personally involved. At the time, even without the benefit of hindsight, could you not see that this was a foreign influence operation? This is not based on intelligence. This is based on evidence.
Yes.
So you differentiated before in your response to another colleague. I'm seeing here that you attended the meeting, that the consular officials from the PRC, from the communist dictatorship in Beijing were at the meeting, and that the direction out is to have Mr. Trudeau involved, and that's what they got. So they asked for it, the PRC asked for it, the PRC got it, and the Trudeau Foundation got the $140,000, and the individuals who were cutouts acting on behalf of the dictatorship both got access directly to the Prime Minister. Within 5 months of this 2-year process, within 5 months, they both had access directly to the Prime Minister.
Mr. Barrett, that's your time.
Can I answer?
I'm going to give you a time, like a quick time to respond. Go ahead.
So first of all, I apologize. I didn't look at the whole list of attendees. I didn't mean to mislead anybody on that. But secondly, this was an initiating meeting. This was not about the donation. At this point, they were talking about a donation to the University of Montreal and to other universities in Canada. And then there was a committee set up with 3 people, Mr. Zhang, Madame Comtois, and Benoit Moore from the University of Montreal, and the evolution of this happened as a result of that. It didn't come out of this meeting.
Thank you, Mr.